and welcome to another edition of The Author's Attic, a production of Social Problems, the official journal for the Society for the Study of Social Problems. This time, we are joined by Nicole Iturriaga, whose co-authored work is featured in the most recent issue of Social Problems. This paper focuses on the ways in which plural marriage activists use the gay and lesbian rhetoric of coming out of the closet to describe their experiences of disclosure. Let's learn more as she further discusses their findings.
So the social problem that our study looked at was social movement tactic in regards to plural marriage activists and how they are tying themselves to other successful social movements, specifically civil rights and coming out language of the gay rights, marriage equality movement. What motivated the study was actually, it was two things. One, the second author had already done some work on coming out narratives in non-traditional senses, and also my undergraduate honors thesis was on plural marriage solidarity and networking of women living in plural marriage communities in Utah. So we bridged those two together, and I went and did 34 interviews with people who are actively practicing plural marriage in Mormon fundamentalist religious sects in Utah. That activists are strategically using different tactics to show themselves as being more progressive. So polygamy as a progressive act to tie themselves to these more successful movements to gain legitimacy. So they're trying to show themselves as not being the people in the prairie dress outfits with the crazy hair. So these are the independents. So they're much more. It's like Sister Wives. Sister Wives, the TV show, shows a family, 4 wives and 1 husband, and they're very modern. They have modern haircuts, modern clothing, and that's actually one of the tactics that we talk about in the paper is distancing. So one of the tactics we talk about in the paper is distancing these independents, more liberal groups away from the FLDS, which, if you remember from news stories, is like child marriage, welfare fraud. They look different, and so they use this tactic of distancing, saying we're not like them, we're more like you, we're modern, and we also see polygamy as being a form of feminism, which we take very seriously in the paper. So the theoretical frameworks of this paper focus a lot on social movement tactics and how spillover can happen from one movement to the other in terms of tactics. But we are adding to that theoretical framework by suggesting that certain social movements can be connected via language, so discursive networks. So when other people are talking about one group in comparison to the other, that can actually bridge a movement as opposed to having any kind of actual physical person that's bridging two movements. So when you talk about feminism leading to others like civil rights movements, civil rights predated feminism, but they were the same activists, so they were bridging one movement to the other. In this case, there is no actual person or bridge because fundamentalist Mormons are morally opposed to the gay lifestyle, as they put it. So that's confusing. That's a paradox that we try to address. So the main takeaways of our paper is that different social movements do not necessarily have to be connected by social networks. We're looking at how plural marriage activists are discursively connected to other successful social movements, such as the case of with gay rights in the marriage equality movement. Opponents to that were using polygamy as the terrible end that could happen. If you allow gay marriage to happen, you'll allow plural marriage to happen. And so you see this many times over in Supreme Court decisions where they're being discursively linked. And this worked well for the plural marriage activists because they're like, yes, we are linked. Even though we are morally opposed to gays and lesbians and what they're doing, we see the benefit in being discursively connected to a successful movement. There is marriage equality now in the United States. And so using the language of coming out, you also connect yourself to things that have worked and is culturally ubiquitous. So they use coming out narratives to talk about telling people in their lives about how they're in plural marriage families, because when they dress like the people of sister wives, you can't necessarily tell that they're practicing plural marriage. If you have an 18th century hairstyle and a prairie dress, they're going to know. So we also take away that the post-feminist argument polygamy is actually liberating to women, because now they have another wife who can stay home with the kids while they go out and work, is actually pretty detrimental to the ideas of feminism, because plural marriage in itself is quintessentially patriarchal. And so when you are reifying something that's patriarchal and calling it feminism, you're depoliticizing what feminism is actually about. And we find that to be very problematic. So we reject that.